He once turned down the opportunity to direct The Godfather, but ultimately, he became a godfather in his own right. Meet the small-time mafioso who made it big in Hollywood. He's ready to reflect on his career, yet few can truly grasp the extent of Martin Scorsese's influential clan and who really makes up this tight-knit family.
But you pay a price, and you pay a price.
What has driven this iconic filmmaker throughout his life? And has he finally found what he's been searching for?
Couldn't have imagined my life could change that much.
Let's uncover the story. In the beginning of the 1900s, two absolutely unrelated Italian immigrant families, Scorsese and Capa, set foot on the shore of the United States of America. After a series of different events, both of them, in the end, settled in Queens, New York. The Scorsese family took up residence at Elizabeth Street, 241, and the Capa family chose the fourth floor of the building number 232, right across the street. It wasn't long before their worlds collided. When Catherine Capa said yes to Charles Scorsese, the film industry had no clue about the cinematic genius that would soon be born. On November 17, 1942, this blessed union gave the world Martin Scorsese.
My mother was very strong. My father was very stern, really trying to uphold the old traditions. And there was a lot of tension. I was in the middle of every discussion, good, bad, and different. But I think they were tied together somehow in it's beyond words or emotions.
Martin was raised in a working-class family. His devoutly Catholic parents had no higher education and preferred movies over books in their leisure time.
There was no tradition of reading in the house, no books, but it was more of a visual tradition, more if I was taken to movie theaters a lot.
Martin saw his first film at the age of 4. From that moment on, cinema became an inseparable part of his life, setting him apart from his peers.
Being a sickly child with very severe asthma, I couldn't play sports. So again, the movie theater and the church and the movie theater.
Raised in Little Italy, New York, Martin grew up with the ethos of a true mafioso. By the age of 13, he had formed his own gang. They roamed the streets, snuck into bars, flirted with beautiful women, and occasionally found themselves in the middle of a brawl. Yet Martin had a strong sense of justice, a trait common among mafiosos. This led him to consider priesthood, and he even attended a preparatory seminary.
The strongest impression I received was going into a church. I was around 7 years old when I went into my first church, and it was the old Catholic cathedral in New York called St. Patrick's Cathedral.
But fate had other plans. After just a year, he was expelled for failing to attend Mass on time. By then, Martin knew his true calling.
My whole life has been movies and religion. That's it. Nothing else.
Scorsese enrolled in New York University College of Arts and Science, which took his parents by surprise.
You can imagine when I explained to my mother and father that I thought maybe I would make movies, they might as well have said become president or become an astronaut.
Surprising his parents, Martin enrolled in the New York University College of Arts and Science. Despite their initial shock, they supported his decision, setting him on a whirlwind journey into the world of cinema. Some might say this was the beginning of an epic adventure, albeit one with its share of pitfalls. At 21, Martin made his first student short film, What's a Nice Girl Like You Doing in a Place Like This?, followed by another, It's Not Just You, Murray. Both films received accolades at the National Student Film Festival in 1965. But more importantly, they introduced him to two pivotal women in his life. The first was film editor Thelma Schoonmaker. After a mishap with the editing of his first film, Thelma stepped in to fix it. Their collaboration would last nearly 6 decades, earning her multiple Oscars and BAFTA awards for editing Scorsese's films. For Martin, editing became an art form, a passion that would last a lifetime. The second was Lorraine Marie Brennan, whom Martin met during the filming of It's Not Just You, Murray. They married in 1965 and had a daughter, Catherine. However, their marriage ended after 6 years due to Martin's relentless focus on his career.
As an old friend, old priest told me, he said, you pay a price, and you pay a price. Just quite honestly, a personal life, really, and relationships go by the board.
The price of this obsession was steep, but Martin was willing to pay it. His love for cinema was all-consuming, fueled by a passion that knew no bounds.
I felt I was a director, and I knew I was, but other people didn't take me that seriously. I was shameless. I went to every party in L.A., promoted myself shamelessly. Dreadful.
And it paid off. After several short films, a successful feature debut, and a couple of documentaries, 1973's Mean Streets catapulted the young director to fame. And once again, fate had more in store for him. He met Robert De Niro. Although they had grown up in the same neighborhood and had even crossed paths, they had never spoken. De Niro, too, had been part of a gang at 16. But their paths had never crossed in a competitive sense. Years later, De Niro would play a crucial role in saving Martin's life.
What's this? Swap. This. What? That. What does this look like? Huh? What? Where'd you get this?
Fast forward to 1976. Martin is 34 and has 2 more critically acclaimed films under his belt: Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore and Taxi Driver. These films garnered various awards, from the Cannes Palme d'Or to BAFTAs. Could this be the pinnacle of what one seeks in life?
Back in 1976, they gave the Palme d'Or to Taxi Driver, and that was like a major thing for me because in America the film did well, but it was nominated for a few Academy Awards.
Taxi Driver so captivated audiences that it inspired a deranged fan to attempt the assassination of U.S. President Ronald Reagan. This incident remains a topic of discussion to this day. But the director focused his attention on completely different events, the events that would split his life to before and after. In 1976, he married writer Julia Cameron and embarked on an ambitious project, a high-budget musical called New York, New York, starring Robert De Niro and the dazzling Liza Minnelli. What could possibly go wrong?
You do not kick off the band. I kick off the band. You understand?
Don't treat me like
Don't
that.
ever do it again. Ever again.
Oh.
Ever again. Let's go.
Well, everything did. The film began shooting without a completed script due to Minnelli's tight schedule. Martin hoped the actors would improvise dialogue, but this proved to be a mistake. After the soaring success of Taxi Driver, the stakes were high. Martin found himself making frantic changes to the unfinished film, akin to building a plane mid-flight. The result was disastrous. Martin's confidence plummeted, and he spiraled into a cocaine addiction.
I tried to experiment with drugs to get the creative juices flowing, and I was also friends with a set of people who were heavy users.
What about his wife, Julia? Didn't she support him then? Julia, while being pregnant with their daughter Domenica, made drunk scenes in front of the whole movie team instead. Weighed down by the burden of all the professional and personal problems, Martin, unable to calm down his wife and rumored to be unfaithful before, found comfort in Liza Minnelli's embrace. This plane went into a full, downward, dangerous, steep dive. This affair became the talk of the town. Martin and Liza's late-night cocaine binges and tardy arrivals on set disrupted the shooting schedule and created a tense atmosphere. To make matters worse, Martin was consumed by jealousy. Minnelli was still married and was also involved with Russian ballet dancer Mikhail Baryshnikov. In a drug-fueled outburst, Martin accused Minnelli of infidelity in front of her husband, setting the stage for future complications in his love life. But let's talk about this later. At this point, Martin's life seemed to be in free fall. He divorced Julia, leaving her to raise their daughter alone. His drug addiction worsened, and New York, New York flopped. At 35, he nearly died from a drug overdose.
After finishing New York, New York, I took chances. I was out of time and out of place. Then, on Labor Day weekend, I found myself in a hospital, surprised that I was near death.
It was a grim time, and Martin was teetering on the edge of ending his career. Who knew what could have happened, if not for Robert De Niro, who, during one of the hospital visits, asked his friend,
"What's the matter with you, Marty? Don't you want to live to see if your daughter's going to grow up and get married?
Are you gonna be one of those flash-in-the-pan directors who does a couple of good movies and it's over for them?
De Niro managed to convince Scorsese to work on a movie, Raging Bull, about a famous boxer of Italian origin, Jake LaMotta. The director didn't know anything about boxing, never was into sports films, and had little faith in the potential of the future picture.
I thought it was the end of my career, that film. Yeah. I didn't think so. Quite honestly, I knew for De Niro it was going to be fine because Bob would get his award. I knew he was such a wonderful actor. He'd get his Academy Award, but I thought I was going to go off to Italy and do films on saints.
By holding steadfast to his convictions and persuading Martin, Robert De Niro saved not only his friend's life, but also his career. The movie was a smash hit, garnering various awards. But the most precious outcome was Martin kicking the habit. All thanks to De Niro, one member in Scorsese's clan. After parting ways with Minnelli, the young and promising director didn't remain single for long. Soon enough, in 1979, Isabella Rossellini became Martin's third wife. She is the daughter of an Italian director, Roberto Rossellini, whose works greatly influenced young Scorsese. Could this finally be a perfect woman for him?
Thank you.
Coffee to go, please.
Isabella Rossellini.
Are you serious? Oh my God.
Unfortunately, their union lasted only 4 years. Ultimately, Isabella grew tired of her spouse's jealous outbursts. Martin never had parents' example of a stable relationship. Moreover, he reminded himself that he was not in the position to withstand competition, so he even hired some private detectives to spy on the young beauty. As a result, they split up.
Look at you. She really did some job on you. You know how f***ing nuts you are? Look what she did to you.
You my wife.
What?
My wife.
For 2 long years, 41-year-old Martin was doing what he loves most, making movies, up until he met a 39-year-old female film producer, Barbara DeFina. Their marriage endured for 6 years, but their friendship and professional relationship continued unabated. Together, they collaborated on 20 movies, and that's how Martin discovered yet another kindred spirit, a new addition to Scorsese's Mafia clan. Their artistic legacy includes a particularly intriguing allegorical film, The Last Temptation of Christ, released in 1988. In the film, the director explored his own personal relationship with God, but it nevertheless caused a great wave of indignation from the church. Martin was subjected to threats from religious fanatics. They not only protested against the movie, but also set movie theaters ablaze. The low-budget indie film quickly turned into a media sensation.
On a osé toucher à la moralité de la personne de notre Seigneur, et ça c'est quelque chose qui est tout à fait inadmissible pour une âme catholique.
Vous l'avez vu le film?
Je n'ai pas vu le film et je ne veux pas le voir, je ne le verrai jamais.
But Martin had his own point of view.
I'm a believer with some doubts, but the doubts push me to find a purer sense of the other, a purer sense, if you want, of the word God.
It's worth mentioning that in each of his films, Scorsese aimed to explore eternal existential questions. Even though he is considered the godfather of gangster films, you'll find fewer than a dozen in his extensive body of work. Interesting tidbit. He once turned down the opportunity to direct The Godfather. His works primarily delve into the maze of cruelty, wickedness, divinity, justice, and the dichotomy between good and evil, and that's what infuriated the entire nation of China when Martin was 55.
Being involved in Christianity and Catholicism, when I was very young, you have that innocence, the teachings of Christ. Deep down, you want to think that people are really good, but the reality outweighs that.
Contemplating the core of human existence led Martin to agree to helm Kundun. The Chinese government was incensed by the portrayal of the life and tragic fate of the 14th Dalai Lama. Disney Studios suffered the scandal's consequences, while Martin and some other participants of the movie production process were banned from entering China for several years. Beyond these global controversies, life had in store yet another dramatic twist for Martin.
At that age, I couldn't have imagined my life could change that much.
Martin never treated filmmaking simply as a business, let alone he counted on making a fortune out of this. If he wanted to say, "I love you" to his father or brother, he never expressed it solely with words. He expressed his feelings through movies.
They're not just movies to me. It was a way of expressing emotion and a way of learning a little about life.
All he ever sought to understand was what came after the happily ever after and the rolling credits. Was he able to find his answer?
But I always really wanted to learn how to love. That was the thing.
And life afforded him the chance to discover. During the shooting of Kundun, he met 42-year-old book editor Helen Morris.
I was in my mid-50s, so a whole life had gone by. I had two beautiful daughters, but the marriages to their mothers had ended. There was something missing.
Helen was the one to invite Martin on their first date.
And that day, she said, I'd like to take you to a special place. It was called the Jardin Majorel in Marrakech.
It was sheer magic. This relationship was extraordinary. Within a year, they were cohabiting in New York. That's when they discovered Helen was pregnant. In November 1999, they welcomed a daughter, Francesca. The iconic director's world flipped once more. He embarked on a new quest for answers to his eternal questions. In 2002, during the shooting of Gangs of New York, Martin met Leo DiCaprio. They clicked creatively right away. Life had blessed Scorsese with another one of his people.
Working alongside him, I've experienced some of my proudest acting moments ever.
It's obvious why Scorsese and De Niro became friends. They grew up at the same time and in the same circumstances, were interested in the same things, and weren't afraid to take risks. So, what united Martin and Leo, who was much younger at the time?
Leo DiCaprio was somebody who also, even though he's 30 years younger, has a similar sensibility.
Leo claims Martin can awaken in the middle of the night with an old, obscure movie scene in his mind and start rewatching the movie right away. The actor admires how Martin consistently manages to create movies out of everything that surrounds him. Welcome another member to Scorsese's Mafia clan.
To have scenes with Bob and being directed by Marty, it was a small slice of, heaven for me as an actor. These two men really are like my fathers in the world of cinema.
Throughout his life, Martin Scorsese has continually met people who have joined him in exploring the movie world side by side. Michael Ballhaus, Robert Richardson, and Rodrigo Prieto are the cameramen with whom Martin has worked for decades. Add three more to Scorsese's Mafia family: screenwriters Paul Schrader, Mardik Martin, Jay Cox, Terrence Winter, John Logan, and Steven Zalian. Costume designer Sandy Powell. Production designers Dante Ferretti and Bob Shaw. Music producer Robbie Robertson. Composers Howard Shore and Elmer Bernstein. For years, these people have remained loyal to him. It truly feels as though they are all members of his own film Mafia. Thus, we declare the great and powerful Scorsese's Mafia family in the vast and complex world of Hollywood to be complete. For years, actors, film editors, and sound engineers have received Oscars for working on Scorsese's movies. But what about Scorsese himself? In 2007, he finally received his long-awaited Oscar for directing The Departed. However, he harbors no bitterness about receiving it at the age of 65. His perspective is that this timing has shaped his films as they are. Had the recognition come earlier, who knows? Perhaps his films would not exist as they do, or he might have lost himself in a bohemian lifestyle and substance abuse.
That's when I realized what my place in the system would be, on the outside looking in.
Upon receiving the Oscar, this esteemed director came to the realization that the most valuable things and aspects of life aren't material things. His most significant regret is missing out on raising his two older daughters.
And the thing I did miss, of course, was being able to help raise them. And that had a lot to do with the obsession to create something on film. I didn't know how to balance the two. There is no balance between the two. You have to do the two together.
Despite not receiving equal attention from their father, all three daughters, Catherine, Domenica, and Francesca, followed in their dad's creative footsteps. The daughters have realized their potential in acting, directing, and screenwriting, even starring in some of Martin's films. Scorsese proudly accompanies his daughters on the red carpet and takes great pleasure in attending their premieres. One commitment he holds without regret is the vow he made to Helen, to love her in sickness and in health.
Cuando Scorsese vino con su mujer, que estaba enferma allí en ese momento, y la trajo, y él, el gran star, dijo, esto es lo que me interesa. Esto está antes que todos mis éxitos, que todas mis películas, que todas las cosas que hice. Esta mujer, esto es mío.
Throughout his life, Scorsese has sought eternal truths through his films, influencing entire generations. He has experienced both the lows of hitting rock bottom and the highs of rising to the pinnacle of success. Upon reaching this life milestone, he came to understand that the answer to life's questions is love, a truth he discovered through his beautiful daughters and his devoted Helen.
If you find yourself in a situation where there is no love, you put love. You have to find it in yourself to pull back, give to the others.
Yeah.
You put it, see what happens.
This particular wisdom he imparts not just to his daughters, but also to current and future generations willing to listen. Naturally, he conveys this through his films and his body of work. Since 1990, Martin has been the founder and head of the Film Foundation, an organization dedicated to preserving and restoring classic films.
We can't have a future of our art form without knowing its past. And I'll just keep saying it because it's true.
Currently, he offers master classes for aspiring filmmakers. His documentary, A Personal Journey with Martin Scorsese Through American Movies, stands as a cornerstone of American film history. Even though the director doesn't regard the successful Marvel movies as real cinema art, he still believes in the bright future of filmmaking, as he indicates in his heartwarming letter to his youngest daughter.
Dearest Francesca, so why is the future so bright? Because for the very first time in the history of the art form, movies really can be made for very little money. This was unheard of when I was growing up. Now, it's the reverse. There is one important thing to remember. The tools don't make the movie, you make the movie. Making a movie, the one you need to make, is something else. There are no shortcuts. I'm saying that the voice that sparks you is your voice. That's the inner light, as the Quakers put it. That's you. That's the truth. All my love, Dad.